theyeshiva.net.
So first of all, I am so thrilled to be here with you, Michael and Stepheny, in honor of Michael Levy's 75th birthday. What a milestone. What a great way of celebrating it. And I see that we have here people from all over the world literally joining us for this grand birthday celebration. And what a better way to celebrate such a milestone by bringing loved ones, family, friends, community members, people we're connected to from all over the globe, literally, to join in saying Mazel Tov, wishing Michael happy birthday, learning together, celebrating together, singing together, saying L'chaim together, and growing, spiritually growing together from strength to strength. So thank you so much, Stepheny. I know this was your brainchild. This was your idea. You reached out to me a while ago, and I'm so happy it worked out. You're a true woman of valor, Eishes Chayil, short-term vision and long-term vision. So congratulations, Michael. Congratulations, Stepheny. Congratulations, Gregory, Richard, Lawrence, Candice. Congratulations to all of the children, the family, the friends. Congratulations to the whole Chabad of Northbrook community. Thank you, Rabbi and Rebbetzin Moskowitz. And welcome to all of your friends and family from Chicago, South Africa, Australia, England, the West Coast, California, and wherever people are joining us from. I am privileged and thrilled to be here with all of you. Michael, I don't know if you know, but not every age is mentioned in the Torah. Some ages are mentioned. Not every year and age is mentioned. But 75 is mentioned. And it's mentioned in the life of the first Jew. The Torah says in Genesis, in the Torah portion of Lech Lecha, Va'avraham ben chamesh v'shivim shana b'tzeito b'tzeiso mecharon. Abraham was 75 years of age when God told him, Lech Lecha, it's time to move on. It's time for you to become the person I see you are capable of becoming. A person in whom all the nations of the world will be blessed. That's when Abraham makes that fateful journey, which changes history. He leaves the place called Haran in Mesopotamia, that's northern Iraq or southern Turkey, and he takes that journey west to the land of Canaan, which later would become, of course, Eretz Yisrael. Usually, most people at 75 are thinking about retirement, or it's already post-retirement 10 years. But Abraham begins his journey at 75, and because of that journey, we are all here today. The whole world has changed because of that journey of Abraham, a lone journey of one man with his wife, Sarah and Abraham. And because of that journey, history is transformed for all of eternity, including the genesis of the holiday of Passover. Now, I know that you and Stepheny made a fateful journey back in 1987 when you left South Africa and you decided to come to the United States of America. And I know that it was not an easy decision. It was actually, I'm not going to say spontaneous, but it was a pretty quick business decision. Ultimately, in your footsteps, many followed. And today you have a large family and a large loving community in Chicago. But my message to you today, our message to you today is that was only the first step. Now it really begins. And I'm not telling you to leave Chicago and move to Iraq or to Syria or to Turkey or wherever the move is, to Eretz Yisrael. I don't know. I'm not the person to tell anybody where to move geographically. But what I do know is that at this age, there's a special energy to be able to begin even a greater and newer chapter in your life. And I bless you that henceforth your life overflows with blessings of health, happiness, prosperity, nachas, and being one of the pillars of the Jewish community in Chicago, a generous giver, somebody with a great heart, a great soul, somebody who cares. You should continue to be an ambassador for the Jewish people, an ambassador of love, light, hope, an ambassador of Yiddishkeit, of the celebration of Jewish life, of Torah, of mitzvahs, and of all of the values that we all hold so dear, and to do it with great spirit and with great joy and serenity. Amen. There was a Jew I knew, he was a Holocaust survivor, and when he was 75, he came to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe and just listened to one sentence that gave him so much comfort. He was in Auschwitz, and he lost his family in Auschwitz, and later he remarried. I knew who he was. His grandson shared with me the story because he remembered the story. His grandson is a neighbor of mine here. And his grandson told me that his grandfather, very good Jew, very special man, but like many survivors, the Holocaust was it was such a trauma beyond words. It was embedded in him. And when he came to see the Rebbe, he received $1. And he told the Rebbe that it's his 75th birthday. And without skipping a heart's beat, the Lubavitcher Rebbe told him, Avraham was 75 when he left Haran. The word Haran means anger. Charon af shel makom. The Midrash says Haran comes from the word Charon, which means wrath, ire, negativity. At 75, Avraham left completely that state of Haran, that state of anger and negativity. And he looked at this Jew and he said, this is what you can do now. You're capable of doing now. And this Jew said it was such a healing moment, like he was 75 after everything he went through. The Rebbe was telling him, and now start celebrating life. Celebrate your family, celebrate your grandchildren. He really built a beautiful family in Jerusalem. Each one of us, even though we live in different circumstances, thank God, we each have our Haran. You know what Haran means? We have those things that make us angry, those things that make us depressed, those things that break us, those things that make us resentful, those things that really restrict us. They restrict our creativity, our joy, our expansiveness, our broadness. And sometimes it takes many years to extricate ourselves from it completely. So I bless you, our birthday boy, and all of us in your merit, because we're all part of the 75th birthday, however young or old we are, and we always get younger in Judaism, we don't get older, maybe older in years, but younger in spirit and commitment, that all of us should be able to seize this opportunity to go out of our own Haran, to extricate ourselves from all those forces, all those thoughts, all those emotions, all those experiences, and all those struggles that make us resentful, that make us angry, that make us depressed, that make us melancholy, and really don't allow us to live life to the fullest, to maximize our potentials, to be able to experience love in the profoundest way, to be able to go out of all the Harans, to leave those Harans, and be able to embark on the journey of Abraham. Lech lecha. God says, go to you. I want you to be able to encounter yourself. I want you to go to the land that I have shown you. And what does this mean, my friends? It's a very profound message, and it's at the core of the consciousness of freedom, the core of Passover, which is all about liberation. What does it really mean? What it really means is there's always two lives. There's the life that I plan, and there's the life that God plans for me. Very rarely are the two lives the same. We all know the expression in Yiddish, a Mensch tracht. A person thinks, as we say in the morning in davening, Rabos machashavos belev ish, v'atzas Hashem hisakum. People have lots of thoughts, lots of planning, You remember the plans for last year Pesach? I was supposed to go last year Passover to a beautiful Italian Pesach program at a resort. I think Napoleon was there, Napoleon Bonaparte. So I was looking forward to it. I like history, and I like Italy, and I like Europe, even though I'm an American. So I was looking forward to it, And then the coronavirus, it began spreading. And the person I was going with said, no, don't worry, in a week it's going to be over. By the time Pesach comes, we'll all be there in Italy. We all made our plans. Everyone has their plans for life, what your marriage is going to look like, what your children are going to look like, what your business is going to look like, where you're going to live, how you're going to live, who will be your friends. We have our plans, the trajectory we create for our lives. You know what the first moment of the first Jew is? This is the first story, the opening story of the Jewish people. God tells Abraham, Lech lecha, and he's 75 years old. Lech lecha me'artzecha me'meladetecha me'beisavicha el ha'aretz asher. Leave your own paradigms. Leave your own comfort zone. And be ready to embark on the journey towards the space that I will show you. I would say that real spiritual maturity and development in life comes when I can tell that to myself. When I could say, Rabbi YY, or Michael, or Meir, or Stepheny, or Gregory, or Yankel, or Chaim, or Shmerel, or Zundel, or Batsya, Rebecca, Leah, Sarah, whoever the person is. Can I say goodbye to the old paradigms, to the old expectations I had what life is supposed to look like? And when those expectations are not met, I get upset, I get anxious, I'm angry, I'm really in grief. But can I really say, I want to step in to the world, to the life that God is showing me? Because that's the journey of my soul. Do I know the mission of my soul? We often create all these expectations of what life is supposed to look like. How do you know what life is supposed to look like? You know what life is supposed to look like? It's supposed to look like exactly what it looks like. Not easy to come to terms with this. Now, of course, this doesn't mean you shouldn't try to make your life better. And you shouldn't have the best possible life, physically, emotionally, financially, psychologically, spiritually, of course. Doesn't mean you should stay in Egypt, but this is about an attitude. And the attitude is that wherever I am, whatever I'm dealing with, this is where I can experience freedom. This is where I can experience God's love. This is where I can experience my true contribution to history and to life. It's very easy to live in another person's world. To say, if only I had these and these types of kids, or this and this type of business, or these and these types of parents, if only I wouldn't have this addiction, if only I wouldn't have had this problem, if only I wouldn't have had this mental challenge, if only I would have had a different school, a different environment, a different job, a different family, a different marriage, a different mother-in-law, a different son-in-law, a different son, a different daughter. If. I'm living in a delusional reality that doesn't exist and getting frustrated with things that are not working out the way I want it to work out. At 75, God tells Abraham, Lech lecha, I want you to step out from a mentality of exile, from a mentality of frustration, of Haran. And I want you to really open yourself up to the fact that you are an ambassador of infinity in this world. You are a divine ambassador. You're a shliach. Abraham is the first person sent by God to change the world. Where you're sent, I will tell you where you're sent. You're my man. You're my woman. You're my child. I will tell you where you're sent. And wherever you're sent, you're mine. It's on my behalf. You're doing my work. And I gave you the exact resources you need to achieve what you have to achieve. I put you exactly in the place where you have to be. I gave you the exact amount of gifts and resources and opportunities and challenges to be able to accomplish exactly what you have to accomplish. Can you breathe that in? Can you really take that in? Can you really live life from that perspective, from that vantage point? And you know what happens then? I go out from a place of Haran. Instead of living with anger, all Haran. Haran means anger. All anger comes from the fact that I never made peace with who I am. I never made peace with my life. I never made peace with my lot. It's basically I lack that emunah, that faith, to know how close God is with me and how meticulous and precise my mission and my journey is. This is the genesis of freedom. The genesis of developing a consciousness of freedom is to realize I'm not a victim of circumstances. Everything I'm dealing with in my life is not a mistake. It's not a random mutation. It's not coincidental. It's not coincidence. It's part of my calling. And my calling may not be what I thought it was 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 45 years ago, or 70 years ago. My calling is, what does God want from me? Right now, at this moment, what is my opportunity? What is my mission? I often speak about issues related to education. Parents, teachers, educators, grandparents. And I see this as a common struggle. I know I have it, and I think many of us have it. We look at our children, and we have a certain image of what it's supposed to look like. What does it mean to have nachas from your children? And if things fit into that model, it's wonderful, and you know what, great. But very often it doesn't fit into that model. Your children challenge you. Your grandchildren challenge you. Or other people challenge you. Your students challenge you. And this is where we really see who people are. Can I rise to the occasion? Can I allow myself to step out of my old comfort zone and really ask not what my children can do for me, but ask what I can do for my children. Ask not what God can do for me, what the Jewish people can do for me, but what I can do for God, what I can do for the Jewish people. It's not anymore about me. I need things to look like this. Why? Who said that? For my ego? For my insecurity? Why am I so insecure? Why do things have to look like this? Some people have expectations because there's so much fear. What are other people going to say? Social conformity. I don't fit in. What's going to be my reputation? That means I'm in a state of anger and exile. Lech lecha means get out. Stop thinking like that. You're a messenger of God. He needs. It's not about what I need. What do I need? I didn't decide to be born. I didn't decide to be Jewish. I didn't decide to be a man. The most important things I never decided. You know that? Nobody asked me if I want to be born. Nobody asked me if I want to be a male or female. Nobody asked me if I want to be Jewish or not Jewish. Nobody asked me who I want my parents to be. Nobody asked me which city I should be born in. Nobody asked me what type of socioeconomic home I should grow up in, what type of community, what type of environment, what type of school. The most important things that shaped my life. No one asked me. You know what? Nobody even asked me what type of genes I should have. What do you say about that chutzpah? Democracy, democracy, democracy. Nobody asked me what type of genes I should have. Do you know that? Nobody asked me what my blood type should be. Nobody. I knew nothing about this. I am a complete product of all these decisions that were made by people and by forces completely out of my control. What does this really mean? This really means I never asked for any of this. Deep down, the great spiritual masters taught, you know when you become free? You become free when you stop talking about how much you need. And you start realize that I don't need anything. God needs. God is the one who chose that I should be born. God is the one who chose that I should be Jewish. God is the one who chose I should be a man or a woman. I happen to be a man. God is the one who chose the family I'll be born into, the mother and father and environment, community. God is the one who chose my genes, my chromosomes. God is the one who chose my composition, my disposition, physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. God is the one who chose my unique combination of DNA. God needed me. The Talmud says in Sanhedrin, Chayev Adam loyma b'shvili nivra ha'olam. Every person is obligated to say the world was created for me, meaning there's something at stake in your life and in my life for which the entire world was created. There's something that you have to contribute, that nobody else before you or after you will ever contribute. You constitute a unique, indispensable note in the divine cosmic symphony. And if this note does not play, the entire symphony is flawed. The truth is, I was once sitting in, somebody once gave me a lift, so a few years ago, and they had the radio on, it was in New York, to 770 AM, ABC News. It was a talk show, and the talk show host was the Jew from San Francisco, Michael Savage. And I get into the car, and the radio was on, and Michael Savage, who's, what do we call him, pretty interesting character, right? is talking, and I hear him say something. It was quite startling to me. He says, somebody sent me the other day a line from a man, from a Jewish fellow, from a Jewish man. And this is what I call, he says, divine wisdom. Not a smart man, a wise man. And he says, it's a quote from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneer. This is what I hear on the radio. That the Rebbe told somebody, Michael Savage says, that the day you were born is the day that God declared that the world is incomplete without you. And he went on extolling what a profound, brilliant, and wise spiritual message that was, which I happen to concur with. Now, I never heard that from the Rebbe, but could be he saw it somewhere, could be it's a letter, could be, I don't know, it's interesting. But the message is certainly one consistent with what I did hear from the Lubavitcher Rebbe many times, and his birthday is also this week, on Wednesday, the 11th Nissan, 1902, beginning of 120th year of the birthday of this great, extraordinary Jewish leader who really changed the face of Judaism in the 20th and 21st century through his students and ambassadors and emissaries and pupils and all of the Jewish people who are involved in this great work of bringing our people together. But this was always his message. The day you were born is the day that God declared that the world is incomplete without you. That's without you, Michael, and without you, Stepheny, and without each and every single one of us here. There is something that God needs in my life and in your life, and the whole world needs it, because if God needs it, the world needs it. And that's why I could say, not arrogantly, but genuinely, for me, the world was created. There's something I have to fix in the world that nobody else can fix, not before me and not after me. There's something you have to fix in the world nobody could fix, not before you and not after you. This is the value, the extraordinary value of every single individual. When I look at life from this perspective, I didn't choose this whole thing. God is the one who chose. And you know why he chose it? He chose it because there's a mission that my soul has that you don't have. There's a mission that your soul has that my soul doesn't have. Then I look at everything differently. I don't have all these expectations, what things are supposed to look like. Why is it supposed to look like this? Because I'm living in a very, very narrow state of mind. And in that narrow state of mind, I create expectations. Can I free myself? Can I say, I'm a conduit for God's energy in this world? I'm a divine conduit. I am an ambassador of love, light, hope, healing, wisdom, authenticity, integrity, redemption. I was created by Hashem. My soul is a piece of God. The Tanya says that every Jewish soul is a chelik Eloikam imal mamash, a fragment of heaven, a spark of infinity, sent down to earth in order to bring God's light and love into our world. I have my corner of the world, you have your corner of the world. That's who I am. What are my needs? My needs is to become the conduit for the light that Hashem wants to shine through me in this world. And every single day, every single moment, I have an opportunity to be that conduit. Every person through their unique vocation, their unique disposition, their unique talents, vices, virtues, circumstances. No circumstances are random. Everything is exactly orchestrated the way God wants it. The Baal Shem Tov said that even when you look at a leaf and it's turning over on the road, on the street, because of a wind that's blowing, that's not a coincidence. There's a wind blowing, so there's a leaf that happens to be affected. No, that also is part of the cosmic plan of Hashgacha Pratis, of divine providence. Certainly, it's true about every single human life and every single Jewish life. And when I can go into that space, I can free myself from anger. I can free myself from the expectations that paralyze me, that keep me stuck, that make me miserable. And I have to say, especially Pesach. You know, Pesach is a time when families come together, communities come together. I know this year it's much more limited. But very often there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of stress based on what things are supposed to look like. I was the other night in the 5 towns and I asked the people, I said, be honest with me, what's the most anxious night in Judaism? And they all said, Pesach night. Pesach night, they said, is the most anxious night. Tisha B'Av, they said, is not so bad. They just watch Netflix. It's wonderful. Officially, Tisha B'Av, you're allowed to watch, all the documentaries. It's like a mitzvah to watch all these depressing movies. But Pesach, Yeah, you got to sit with the family, the 4 cups, the Haggadah, everybody has something to say. And you know those people who buy 40 Haggadahs before Passover so they should have what to say at the Seder? You know, I saw a guy, he tells me I bought 40 different Haggadahs so I should have what to say. I said, thank God I'm not going to sit at your Seder. So it's something that people are very, very anxious. And part of the anxiety comes from the expectation of what it's supposed to look like. This is what it's supposed to look like. How do you know what it's supposed to look like? The Torah doesn't say what it's supposed to. The Torah says at the Seder, just connect to your child wherever he is, wherever she is. And that's why there's no one child. There's the wise child. There's the rebellious child. The mischievous child. The confused child. The child who's apathetic. Why are there so many kids? Because there's no picture-perfect family. It's connecting to your child where he or she is right now. And it's connecting to your own inner child where you are right now. We all have the inner child inside of us. Inside of me, there's a Chacham and a Rasha and a Tam and a Sheni Yedei Elishal. Inside of me. You know the story, I think, of Isaac Bassheva Singer. It's a beautiful story. He says, anecdotally, he says that there was the Jews from Chelm in Poland. They sent an emissary to Vilna, to the famous city in Lithuania, the Jerusalem of Lithuania. Vilna was called Yerushalayim Delita, to find out about, the diversity of the Jewish world. So he goes to Vilna, he goes to the synagogue, and he comes back to Chelm. They say, "No, what did you observe?" He said, "Unbelievable. I go into the synagogue of Vilna and I meet a Jew. You know what I meet? I meet there as follows. I meet an atheist, a Jewish atheist. I meet a Jewish agnostic. I meet a believer. I meet a capitalist. I meet a socialist. I meet a communist. I meet a Zionist. I meet an anti-Zionist. I meet somebody who loves religion, somebody who hates religion, somebody who loves Yiddishkeit, somebody who's running away from Yiddishkeit. I meet a right-winger, a left-winger. Unbelievable." So they say to him, "What's the big deal? We have all these types of Jews in Chelm too." He says, no, it was all the same person. So within each and every single one of us, I once heard from Rabbi Sachs, the great late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory, who just passed away a few months ago on Shabbos Parshat Vayer, the 20th of Cheshvan. And he said that he once had a public debate with Amos Oz. Maybe you've heard of Amos Oz. Amos Oz was one of the big left-wingers of Israel, a great writer, exceptional novelist, very talented man, and very left-wing, extremely, to put it mildly, like an Israeli knows how to be a left-winger. Much better than a South African left-winger. So he says he was having a debate with him. So Amos Oz starts off the debate. He says, Rabbi Sachs, I have to tell you at the onset that I will probably disagree with everything you have to say during this debate. But I want to tell you something else. I will probably disagree with also everything I say during this debate. What a great Jewish sentiment. What a good line, right? I don't only disagree with you, I also disagree with myself. And friends, most disagreements are this way. I disagree with you and I don't disagree with myself. In fact, when you learn to make peace with yourself, you can make peace with everybody. The reason I can't make peace with other people is not because of them, it's because of me. That's the rule. The Baal Shem Tov said, everybody's a mirror. When I learn to make peace with you, when I learn to make peace with me, I learn to make peace with you. I point a finger at you, I'm pointing 3 fingers at myself. It's just the way it goes. Peace starts inside. The old joke about the Buddhist Zen monk. There was a Buddhist Zen monk who happened to come to New York. And he was in Borough Park, from all places, and he was starving. He hasn't eaten for 20 years, probably. He was fasting. So he goes into a Jewish, hot dog store, a Jewish deli. Pastrami sandwiches, healthy stuff, hot dogs, burgers, pastrami sandwiches with baguettes, etc. And he comes in, and this Jew is standing behind the counter. And he tells the Buddhist Zen monk, tells the Jew, he points what he wants. He says, "You want a hot dog? How do you want it?" He says, "Make me one with everything." Okay, he makes him one with everything. pun intended. At the end, he gives him the hot dog, and the Buddhist monk gives this Jew a $50 bill. Jew takes the $50 bill, puts it in the registry, and the Buddhist monk is standing there silent. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Finally, the Jew looks at him and says, "Why are you standing?" He says one word, "Change." The Jew looks at him and says, "Change? Change has to happen within." So it's a joke, but there's a true insight to that. And that is, it's about my own inner attitude. That changes everything. And that's why we have a very special tradition on Pesach. I always saw it very meaningful tradition. In the beginning of the Seder, we break the matzah. We all know we break the matzah. Really, bread of a poor man, lechem oni. We say the Haggadah on a broken piece of matzah, not on a whole matzah, on a broken piece of matzah. Because, as Hemingway said, life breaks people. Life breaks all people. And then some of us know how to live in the broken places better than others. Hemingway did not know how to live in broken places. He took his life, sadly, early 60s. Ernest Hemingway. But freedom is always set on a broken piece of matzah. It's not a whole matzah. Because life has disappointments. Nobody's life is perfect. The only lives that I know that are perfect are the lives I don't know. The only marriages that I know that are perfect are the marriages I don't know. Maybe Stepheny and Michael are an exception for that. The only people I know who are perfect are the people I don't know well. We each have a brokenness in our life. We each have a broken matzah. And that's what we say the Haggadah on. We don't say the Haggadah on picture-perfect matzahs. We say the Haggadah on a broken matzah. That's where we achieve freedom. Freedom is not achieved in a life that is perfect and blissful and flawless. Everything is exactly the way I want it to go. Halavai! If you have that matzah, go with it, celebrate it. And if you could give us all the recipe, you'll probably make a lot of money. But the fact is, if I look into my life, there are disappointments. If you look into your life, there's disappointments. There's grief. There's loved ones that we lost, we miss. There's challenges we face, mental challenges, physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, financial, familial challenges, marital challenges, business challenges, challenges with children. Can I be free or have to be bitter? At the age of 75, God tells Abraham the recipe. Lech lecha. You have to go to you. You have to go out of your comfort zone. You have to go out of your enslaving mentality. From the way you see everything. From your paradigm, from your perspective, from what feels good emotionally to you. Can you go to the land that I will show you? Can you step into the divine space of infinity? Can you start looking at life not as your need, but as God's need? If this is my child right now, God needs me to be his father. If this is my daughter right now, God needs you to be her mother. She say, but it's so difficult, I'm not interested. You never were interested in being born. God was interested in you being born. Figure that out. The faster I can figure that out and you can figure that out, the faster we can become healthy and happy and celebrate life. This is your child. God knows that you are the best person in the world to be here for this child. If not, you wouldn't have been his parent. You wouldn't have been his grandparent. Don't pass the buck over to somebody else. The fact is that what you can do for your child, nobody in the world can do for your child. You all know that. It's not a mistake that you're the father, you're the mother. This is your shlichus. This is your mission. Fasten your seatbelt. Jump into it with gusto, with passion, with oomph, with happiness, with jubilation, and ask not what America can do for you. Ask not what the Jewish people can do for you. Ask what you can do for Hashem, for Israel, for the Jewish people, for your community, for your spouse, for your loved ones, for your children. I know this has been Michael's motto throughout his life, and it will continue to be his motto, and it's something all of us, in our own way, can emulate. Something else happens. We break that matzah. And the little part of the matzah we keep at the Seder table. The larger part of the matzah we hide. It becomes the afikoman. But for the whole Seder, it's not there. We say the manishtana, 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 avadim hayinu. We drink one cup, we drink another cup. The afikoman is gone. That larger piece of matzah is absent. It's been hidden away. Probably your children stole it already. They're going to give it back to you at some point. For my days, it was a black and white cookie, a bell. The rich kids got a calculator, and the Rothschild kids got a Parker pen. Today, if you will give your son a Parker pen for the afikoman, he will probably sue you in court. It's more like a Lamborghini, a private jet, a yacht will work. And if you're a really poor family, iPhone 12 might pass. And your son will continue to be on speaking terms with you after Passover. What's this whole symbolic thing? We break the matzah, most of it goes away, a little bit, part of it stays here, and then later, at the end of the meal, after everything, before we're ready to do the benching, the grace after meals, and drink the third cup, we take out the afikoman when everybody is exhausted and is longing just to get into bed and have a good night's sleep. What is the symbolism here? Friends, there's one profound symbolism that has always touched me. I heard this from a Jew, a friend of mine, Rabbi Zalman Shmukler from Los Angeles, an elder chassid. He told this to me years ago on an airplane. You know, my friends, the matzah is the story of our people. It's the bread of faith that has accompanied us from the day we became a nation. We always held on to that matzah. That's the bread that we eat every single Pesach. It's the bread that we ate that first year, the unleavened matzah, until today. It's the matzah that represents our history, our journey from exile to redemption. But at some point in our history, that matzah has been broken into two. Our nation has been split. And I'll tell you what happened. A small part of the matzah remains at the Seder table. A larger part of the matzah left the Seder table. At some point in our history, a few hundred years ago, our people have been fragmented. Our people have split. A smaller minority in quantity-wise, remained at the Seder table. A smaller percentage of the Jewish people maintained that we must continue our tradition the same way our fathers and grandfathers and babbas and grandmothers practiced it for hundreds and thousands of years. These are the Jews who maintain you wake up every morning and you put on a talit and you wrap tefillin and you eat kosher and you have a mezuzah on your door and you celebrate Shabbat and holidays and you bequeath to your children a true Torah education and you hold on to all of the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah the same way it was practiced 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and 2,000 years ago. This is one group of the Jewish people. And as I told you, in terms of quantity, it's the smaller percentage of our people. A larger percentage of our people, when this split happened, they chose a different path. Many of them believed that our future lay by abandoning the past and opening ourselves up to progressiveness. They have embraced new isms, new philosophies, new ideas, not necessarily always consistent with the Masorah, with the tradition of halacha, of Jewish law, of Jewish ritual, of Jewish tradition, of Jewish faith, of Jewish custom. And let's face it, the relationship between these two groups has not always been peaceful. Sadly, there were accusations hurled from both sides against each other. The small group turns to the larger group and says, you're alien. You have alienated yourself from your parents, from your ancestors, from your people, from your faith. Your grandchildren won't be Jewish. And the larger group looks at the smaller group and says, you're extremists, you're fundamentalists, you're so narrow. You have to open yourself up to modernity. You have to open yourself up to the winds of progressiveness. History is moving. You're still sheltered in your cocoon. You're still so isolated and insulated. The relationship is sometimes tense, even in the diaspora, especially in the Holy Land, especially in Israel. I probably don't have to elaborate on the ongoing conflicts between what they call the Datim and the Chilonim and the Haredim and the Musar, between the religious and the secular. In my mind, it's not a coincidence that a few days before Passover, we're not only celebrating Michael Levy's birthday, but as I mentioned, the 11th of Nissan is also the birthday of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. One of his great messages was this: the matzah may have been broken, but it's still one matzah. The two parts of the matzah may have been separated, but it's still part of one integrated, cohesive matzah. And there's no way we can finish the Seder if we do not go and search for the afikoman and retrieve that other part of the matzah and bring it back to the Seder table so it becomes part of the celebration of Passover. The Rebbe would always say, we have been through a long Seder. We have been through an exhausting Seder. It's been going on for thousands of years. We have eaten too much maror, bitter herbs. I don't only mean physically, but also conceptually and historically. We are about to finish the Seder, but you cannot finish the Seder if you do not bring together those two parts of the matzah. If we do not reunite those two aspects of the matzah, we cannot go on with the Seder. Each one of us must go out of our own insulated cocoon and realize that the afikoman may be lost somewhere in the world, but it's still part of our matzah. I and you must have the courage to go out and search for the afikoman wherever it may be. Embrace it, lift it up, and with tenderness and caring and empathy and love, bring it back to the table and show it that its share was always waiting to be filled by this Jew. Bring it back to its righteous place, to its rightful place in the history and the unbroken chain of Knesset Yisrael of the Jewish people, because every single one of us has their unique soul, their unique mission, their unique relationship with God, and as long as one part of the matzah is missing, the entire part of the matzah is missing. Nobody as religious as they are can finish the Seder if they don't go out and bring back the afikoman and restore it to its true, pristine dignity as an indispensable component of the entire nation of Israel, of God's children. Only when we bring back that afikoman can we declare together, L'shana haba'a b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. Thank you very much. Mazel tov, happy birthday, Gut Yom Tov. Excellent question. Excellent question. So I'm going to answer. Before I answer, I'm just going to say two things. First of all, you could look up online. I have a lecture called Your Stress-Free Pesach Seder. You could look it up online. Your Stress-Free Pesach Seder, Rabbi Y. Jacobson. I know that it's on theyeshiva.net, and that may be helpful. Number one. Number two, Tuesday morning, 9:45, I'm giving a lecture, how to make your Seder with less anxiety. That's going to be this Tuesday morning at 9:45 our time, New York time, which is going to be also on theyeshiva.net. You can watch it live. But I do want to say one thing now to answer your question, and that is, I think the first thing is to try to enter into an attitude, to enter into Seder with a inner state of relaxation, rather than building up expectations of what it's supposed to look like. Really realize that this is just a time of connection, of bonding with our loved ones, wherever they may be. Bonding doesn't mean I connect to you where I want you to be. Bonding means I connect with you where you are right now. And whatever that looks like, it looks like, whatever that looks like, it looks like. And when you could come with that attitude, it doesn't have to be a certain way. It doesn't have to be a certain length. It doesn't have to look a certain way. Of course, we do the rituals, we do the traditions, but the real focus is the main mitzvah of the Seder night. You know what the mitzvah is? There's a mitzvah to eat matzah. The only biblical mitzvah of the Seder night is drinking 4 cups of wine is rabbinic, reclining is rabbinic, eating maror is rabbinic, saying the whole Haggadah is rabbinic. The main mitzvah, the biblical mitzvah, is to eat matzah and to speak to your child. To bond with your child, to bond with your grandchild, to bond with your loved ones. That's what our focus has to be. Our focus has to be, this is the moment where I'm just sharing my love, my connection, my emotional bonding. And you'll notice that the rabbis understood that today in psychology, there's something called somatic therapy. It's about the healing of the body. Not so much about words. Used to be everybody was sitting in therapy explaining everything for 25 years. Today they know that the words are not so relevant. The trauma sits in the body. The body keeps the score. We've got to extricate it from the body. And it's fascinating that most of the rituals of the Seder are all experiential. It's not so much about words. It's about eating the matzah, eating the bitter herbs, eating the korech, eating the egg, eating the afikoman, drinking the wine. It's like, just talk about it. Let's talk about the Meir. No, don't talk about it. Eat it, taste it, experience it. Because Judaism needs to be experiential. We're all good with words, especially the Ashkenazim, we love words. We're all good. I shouldn't attack words. That's how I make my living. But we all love words. We love words. We love drushes and speeches and sermons. We're all good at it, And I think we have to become better at experience, allowing ourselves to experience Yiddishkeit, to experience it in the gut, in the kishkes, in the esophagus, in the trachea. And the words come with experience and from experience. Those are some thoughts that come to me. Hachlata? Oh, the word hachlata means a resolution, a profound, firm commitment. The word muchlat in Hebrew means like absolute. So hachlata is when a person accepts upon themselves a firm resolution that they will practically implement. I assume you're mentioning it because the tradition by many Jews is that when we have a birthday is like a personal Rosh Hashanah. It's like Rosh Hashanah is the birth of Adam and Eve, anniversary of creation. Our personal Rosh Hashanah is the day of our birthday. So on the day of a birthday, we're always introspective of where we were, where we are, and where we want to be. But the point is not just introspection. The point is really to focus on something practical that I can introduce into my life, which will bring more light to my loved ones and to the world. I assume that's why you're asking. Amen. Stepheny and Michael, I see in the chat there are approximately 30 or 40 messages to you. Make sure you copy them and read them. A lot of beautiful messages. People really love you and Stepheny. They're crazy about you. It's probably because of your wife, but it's just good to know. Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a very cute anecdote, which I think is very apropos. There was once a mother, and her son David was learning in a school just a few blocks away. He was in elementary school. He was a young boy. And he would walk home every day because it was just a few blocks. But one day she noticed it was 4 o'clock and there was a downpour. And it was literally a marble of flood. And there was thundering and lightning. And she really didn't want that David should walk home alone, in such a stormy weather. So she got into the car and she started to drive to school in order to pick him up so he wouldn't have to walk. And what does she see? She sees he's walking already. And there's thundering and lightning. And every time there's a lightning, he looks up and he smiles. And she's like, David, David. She rolls down the window. David, get into the car. I said, no, mommy. I want to walk home. I'm fine. She says, David, why are you smiling? And he says, what do you mean? God keeps on taking pictures of me. So every time he takes a picture, I look up and I smile. It's a warm, homey, maisela, little Yiddish story. But there's such a beautiful truth to it because there's basically 2 ways of living life. Albert Einstein said, either you live life with the notion that nothing is a miracle or that everything is a miracle. That's really the truth. Because really, nothing makes sense. The fact that I woke up this morning is a miracle. The fact that there's 80 trillion cells in my body working with perfect harmony and functionality to be able to create a living organism is a miracle. We take nothing for granted. The fact that there's an apple or a peach that I can eat and can keep me alive, and that the tree produced it, is also a miracle. We take everything for granted. So he said, either take everything for granted or take nothing for granted. Judaism maintains we take nothing for granted. The last verse of Psalms is, Kol haneshama tahalel, ya hallelujah. Every soul ought to say thanks, and the Midrash says the word soul comes from the word breath, neshima. Kol haneshama, kol neshimu neshima. For every breath you take, you say thank you. Every breath. Somebody shared with me, I know a doctor, he lives in Lakewood. Dr. Lebowitz is his name. Harry Lebowitz. And he shared something very, very beautiful. Very beautiful. He said, he was once on call, he was in the hospital, and an African-American woman was brought in. She had cardiac arrest. And they worked on her and worked on her and worked on her, and then the medical team gave up, they declared her dead. Dr. Lebowitz came in then to the ICU, to the emergency room, and he said to himself, you know what, I want to try. And he tried reviving her to no avail. And he was about to give up, but something inside of him said, no, continue. He doesn't know why, there was an instinct, and he continued for 45 minutes, and he got a pulse. And he saved her life. And after a few weeks in the hospital, she was about to go home. And he came in just to discharge her and say goodbye and wish her well. And he said this over. He said, this African-American woman looked at him and said, Doctor, how do I thank you? How do I thank you? She says, yes, at every milestone in my life, I'm going to thank you publicly. At my birthdays, at my wedding anniversaries, at my kids' birthdays, Thanksgiving dinner, New Year's dinner, holiday dinners, I'm going to make a special toast to the doctor who decided to believe in me, and that's why I'm here. But that's not enough. That's not really enough. Really, she says, what I should be doing is every step I take, every move I make, every word I say, I should say, thank you, Dr. Lebowitz. Thank you, Dr. Lebowitz. And he said he had an epiphany. This African-American woman was teaching him about Yiddishkeit. Because basically she was telling him, every step you make, every step you take, every breath you take, say thank you. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Life is not taken for granted. Don't take life for granted. Amen. For many, many, many more long, happy, healthy, prosperous years, you should both be able to continue to serve as ambassadors of love and light and generosity to each other, to your family, to your friends, to your community, to all of Chicago and to the whole Jewish world and to the whole world. Beautiful.
Keep on the Zoom.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.